Why the Mongols never lost. The wind howls across the endless grasslands. Dust rises into the darkening sky as thousands of horses thunder over the earth. Somewhere beyond the horizon, an army waits in perfect formation. Heavy infantry lock their shields together. Archers tighten their bowstrings. Generals study the approaching cloud of dust, convinced they are about to crush another band of nomadic raiders. Then the dust parts. Not one army, but dozens of smaller groups, riding with impossible speed. Arrows begin to fall before anyone hears the command to fire. Men collapse, horses scream. The enemy advances, then suddenly turns and runs. The defenders cheer, believing victory is already theirs. They have no idea they are galloping straight into a trap. By sunset, the battlefield is silent. Thousands lie dead. The victorious army has vanished into the horizon as if it had never been there. For more than a century, scenes like this repeated across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Kingdom after kingdom prepared for war. Kingdom after kingdom was destroyed. How could an empire built by nomads defeat nearly every civilization it encountered? Why did the Mongols almost never lose? The answer begins not on the battlefield, but on one of the harshest landscapes on earth. Long before the world feared the Mongol Empire, the people of the steppe fought a different enemy, nature itself. The Mongolian plateau offered little mercy. Winters froze rivers solid. Summers scorched the plains. Food could disappear overnight. Tribes competed endlessly for grazing land, horses, and survival. Only the strongest endured. Children learned to ride before they could properly walk. By the age of 5, many could control a horse across rough terrain. They hunted from horseback, slept outdoors, and survived conditions that would cripple most professional soldiers from settled kingdoms. War was not a profession, it was life. For centuries these tribes battled one another in endless cycles of raids and revenge. Every victory produced stronger warriors. Every defeat eliminated weakness. Then, one man united them. Temujin, the man history remembers as Genghis Khan. He understood something few rulers ever had. The greatest weapon wasn't courage, it was organization. Instead of rewarding noble birth, he promoted skill. A shepherd who proved himself in battle could command noble warriors. Loyalty mattered more than bloodline. Discipline mattered more than family. His army became a machine, unlike anything the medieval world had ever seen. Every 10 soldiers formed a unit. 10 units became 100. Hundreds formed thousands. Thousands formed armies that could separate by hundreds of kilometers, yet reunite with astonishing precision. Every soldier knew exactly who commanded him. Every commander knew exactly what to do if communication failed. The result was an army that never depended on chaos. It created order wherever it rode. But organization alone does not explain victory. The real secret was speed. Most medieval armies marched. The Mongols flew. Each warrior carried multiple horses, switching mounts throughout the day while exhausted animals recovered. European knights often struggled to cover 30 kilometers in a day. Mongol armies sometimes doubled that distance. Enemy scouts reported one location. By the time their message reached the capital, the Mongols had already appeared somewhere else. Kings prepared defenses for battles that never happened. Cities strengthened walls while the real invasion swept around them. Entire kingdoms were defeated before they understood where the attack had begun. Yet speed alone could not destroy empires. Information could. Before every campaign, Mongol scouts spread across enormous distances. They measured rivers, counted soldiers, recorded roads, identified food supplies, located bridges, forests, mountain passes, and weak fortifications. Nothing was left to chance. While many medieval commanders marched into the unknown, Mongol generals often knew more about enemy territory than the rulers defending it. Knowledge became another weapon. Then came the bows. At first glance, the Mongol composite bow appeared smaller than the famous English longbow. Appearances deceived. Built from layers of wood, horn, and sinew, it stored tremendous power despite its compact size. A mounted archer could fire accurately while riding at full speed in any direction, even behind him during retreat. A skilled warrior released several arrows in the time many enemies fired one. Entire formations collapsed before they could even reach striking distance, but the Mongols understood something even more important than firepower. Winning the enemy's mind often mattered more than winning the battle. They mastered fear. Rumors spread ahead of their armies. Stories told of cities erased from existence, armies annihilated, kings executed, resistance crushed without mercy. Sometimes those stories were exaggerated. The Mongols encouraged that. If one city surrendered immediately, thousands of lives and valuable time were saved. If another resisted, its destruction became tomorrow's warning. Psychological warfare marched beside every cavalry column. Eventually, some cities surrendered before the first Mongol horse even appeared. When battle finally came, the Mongols rarely attacked directly. Instead, they surrounded opponents with movement. Horse archers approached, fired, disappeared, and attacked again from another direction. Enemy commanders struggled to understand where the real assault would begin. Lines shifted. Orders conflicted. Confusion spread. Then came the maneuver that became legendary. The feigned retreat. The Mongols deliberately pretended to panic. They abandoned the field. They dropped equipment. They rode away in apparent disorder. Believing victory was near, enemy armies broke formation and charged after them. Discipline vanished. Infantry outran their shields. Cavalry outran their support. Generals lost control. That was exactly what the Mongols wanted. At a signal, sometimes a raised banner, sometimes a horn echoing across the plain, the fleeing horsemen wheeled around. Fresh cavalry emerged from hidden valleys and distant ridges. Arrows poured into the exhausted pursuers. Flanking forces struck both sides simultaneously. Within minutes, the hunters became the hunted. What appeared to be panic had been rehearsed deception. Battle after battle ended the same way. But the Mongols were not invincible because every plan succeeded. They were dangerous because failure rarely destroyed them. If resistance proved stronger than expected, they simply withdrew. They regrouped. They gathered intelligence. Then, they returned with a better plan. Unlike many medieval rulers obsessed with personal glory, Mongol commanders valued victory over pride. Retreat was not shameful, it was another weapon. As the empire expanded across China, Central Asia, Persia, Russia, and Eastern Europe, it adapted constantly. Chinese engineers built siege machines. Persian administrators improved logistics. Captured craftsmen produced better weapons. Instead of rejecting foreign knowledge, the Mongols absorbed it. Every conquest made them stronger. Every enemy unknowingly improved the next campaign. Still, even the greatest army faced impossible obstacles. Towering mountains, frozen rivers, burning deserts, massive fortified cities. Yet somehow the Mongols crossed them all. They built bridges in days, constructed siege engines from local timber, used captured engineers regardless of nationality, crossed rivers in inflated leather skins, survived on dried meat, fermented milk, and the endurance of their horses. Where other armies stopped, the Mongols continued. Where others waited for supplies, they created them. By the middle of the 13th century, their empire stretched farther than any contiguous land empire in history. From the Pacific Ocean to the borders of Europe, kingdoms disappeared beneath the thunder of hooves. The world had never witnessed military expansion on such a scale. Yet saying the Mongols never lost oversimplifies history. They suffered setbacks. Storms destroyed invasion fleets. Fortified cities occasionally resisted. Some campaigns ended in retreat. Eventually, powerful states learned to adapt. The Mamluks defeated a Mongol force at the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, proving they could be stopped under the right conditions. Internal rivalries later fractured the empire, weakening the unity that had fueled its unstoppable expansion. But those defeats came after decades during which the Mongols had rewritten the rules of warfare. Their methods transformed military thinking forever. Mobility became as important as numbers. Intelligence became as valuable as courage. Discipline outweighed individual heroics. Psychological warfare became a battlefield in its own right. Centuries later, commanders from vastly different eras would embrace similar principles: rapid maneuver, flexible command, deep reconnaissance, deception, concentration of force at decisive moments. The technology changed. The battlefield changed. Human nature did not. The thunder of Mongol cavalry eventually faded from the Eurasian plains, but the lessons they left behind never disappeared. Empires rose by studying movement instead of strength. Generals learned that information could defeat larger armies. Nations discovered that fear itself could become a weapon. The Mongols did not conquer the world because they possessed the biggest armies. They conquered because they understood war better than anyone else alive. They turned speed into strategy, discipline into survival, deception into victory. And by the time their enemies realized what was happening, it was already too late. The Mongols were never truly unbeatable. They were simply centuries ahead of everyone else. And that is why, for one astonishing moment in history, the sound of distant hoofbeats became the most terrifying warning on Earth.